Welcome to PERGOLD Reports, the talk show tailor-made for you, an audience intrigued by what makes entrepreneurs want to get out of bed each morning and change the world. By founders of the New Jersey Elder Law Center at Goldberg Law Group, certified elder law attorney Eric Goldberg, and Chief Operating Officer Clelia Pergola.
Okay. Hi, Rosanne.
Hi,
Thank you
Eric.
for joining me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm happy to be here.
How are you this morning?
I'm great.
Good,
I'm all
good.
fired
Glad.
up.
Good. So let's get the easy question out of the way. What is it that you do?
I'm a divorce attorney, is what I do, and I manage a small firm. We have offices in Morristown and Flemington, New Jersey. There's 4 attorneys, including myself, and all we do is family law. I have a specialty certification in matrimonial law, so that means I'm an expert at divorce and family law. And I also consider myself an entrepreneur because I run my practice like a business, and that is one of my greatest passions.
Okay, so that's a great segue into the next question. We at Goldberg Law Group also run our practice as a business, and we pride ourselves on that. We don't think enough lawyers do that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how your entrepreneurial bent affects your practice and what you do differently than other law firms.
So one of the things that I started to do in the beginning of this partnership that I formed with Erin DeTorres in 2011 is I started to document every process that a client would experience with my firm. And not only coming into the firm, but what the documents were that they would receive, what the paperwork is that they would receive, and really started to pay attention to the granular experience that my client had with us, even from coming into the driveway of the building, where they park, how do they get into the building, is it understandable, who greets them when they come in, what does the conference room look like, really starting to what I call micromanage the client experience. So it started with those ideas that I really learned from other people. I mean, none of this was original.
Right. No reason to reinvent the wheel.
No, and what the springboard was a book I read called E-Myth for Lawyers. And the fellow's name is Michael Gerber. He wrote the E-Myth books. And there's E-Myth books, I think, for estate planning attorneys. There's E-Myth books for landscapers. There's E-Myth books. Highly recommend the E-Myth books.
And there's an E-Myth book.
There's an E-Myth book.
Revisited.
That's right. And he talks about working on your business instead of in your business. So what does that really mean? It means that you start to think of your business as an entity apart from you instead of as part of you. And for me, it began with documenting processes and systems, and then organizing them so that everybody that worked in that practice with me was doing the same thing all the time, consistently, for each client that had an experience with our firm.
Right, it's sort of like trying to build a franchise model, but not actually franchise.
Exactly. The other thing that we started to do that really, I think, distinguished us from a lot of other small firms is we started to measure a lot of data. We use a CRM system and we capture information, all kinds of demographic information about our clients, how they found us, what their ages were, income, household income, whether they have children. My particular industry, having children is important, where they worked, where their employers, what their zip codes were. And that data then began to motivate and direct how we marketed our practice, because it told us who our clients were in the beginning, but also told us who our clients weren't. And we made a decision that we really weren't getting the clients that we really desired, higher dollar value cases, let's put it that way, or more affluent clients. And it helped us to brand our firm in a certain way, changed our messaging so that we would attract what we called our ideal clients. It also motivated one of the biggest decisions that we ever made, which was to open a second office in Morris County, because we realized by plotting out the zip codes of our clients, of our existing clients, that 80% of them came from within a 15-mile radius of our building address in Flemington. And because we had already garnered so much of a market share in that radius, we knew that we couldn't expand revenue-wise, and we had to either move our practice or add an office location in a more densely populated area. So data analysis and metrics measuring has become a very big thing that we do, I think, that sets us apart from other small firms.
Interesting. So did that data analysis lead you to Morristown, or was there another reason that you chose Morristown as a second
So
office?
we evaluated Somerset County, Morris County, and Middlesex County. And we picked Morristown because of the demographics, because of the density. There's almost, I think there's 500,000 people that live in Morris County, as opposed to Hunterdon County, there's 130,000. And because of the affluence of the community, the more higher density professionals, the fact that there are train stations meant that there were people that were working in cities or more urban populations. It was a sort of a bedroom community feel to it.
Right.
And Morristown is just an amazing city, and it's a wonderful place to work. There's lots going on, there's culture, there's museums, and so that motivated us to pick Morris County as opposed to Somerset and Middlesex.
Very interesting. You mentioned just now that having children is very important to your industry. Can you explain to our viewers why that is?
Well, in divorce, families that have children have to negotiate how they're going to handle these children when the marriage fails. So that means that there are parenting arrangements that have to be negotiated, custodial arrangements that have to be negotiated, things like college tuition and how it gets paid, how are we going to save for college, what about the child support, how is that going to be calculated, what is the child support amount going to be, what about activities? I mean, children add a layer of complication to family law cases that we would really like to handle. So.
All right. So switching gears a little bit, or going back to running a business, running a law firm as a business, I'd like to get your perception on running a business. So, for instance, I make a concerted effort not to say that I'm going to work, because work is a four-letter word. Nobody likes to work, so I'm just going to the office or I'm going to the firm. How do you perceive the practice of law and the practice of running a business?
I do say that I'm going to work. I have fully integrated my work into my life. So from that standpoint, I don't think of them as separate things. It's part of who I am, and it is something like a child that I nurture and I love.
Right.
So I never feel like I'm really working. And I could, if I had no other commitments, I could probably just work on my business all the time because I like it so much. And I like figuring out ways to enhance it. I like figuring out ways to make my team more cohesive, how to please my team, how to make them enjoy what they're doing, how to have them buy into the mission and purpose of the firm,
right.
The why we're doing what we're doing, and not just the how we're doing it. So I perceive my business as really fully integrated in my life, and I never think of it as work.
Right. Okay, great. And how do you evaluate the type of employees you have, whether it be hiring or rewarding them, or having them as fulfilled individuals? Because I think one of the downfalls of a business owner is that they assume that everybody is like them.
Yeah, so that is a tricky situation. And my feeling is that, so there's professionals that work in my firm, and there's what I call paraprofessionals, paralegals, and then there's administrative staff. So for the lawyers, we really, we want to make sure they have the technical legal skills. We do a whole process of evaluating whether they have the technical legal skill. But for everybody in the firm, the more important thing is the fit, the cultural fit. Do they have the right personality? Are they somewhat outgoing? Are they friendly? Are they generous people? It takes a lot to figure that out about people. You have to spend a lot of time with them. We use a system called top grading. You can look it up. It's really like a very in-depth interview process, and it takes place over several months. So you kind of weed people out that aren't interested in sticking with the process.
Right.
We do some testing online too as well. But to reward people, professionals are rewarded, really with money.
Right.
And by originating cases and generating a certain amount of revenue, they get incentives for doing that. My belief, though, is that kind of extrinsic motivation, dollars, if you do this, you get more money, doesn't really motivate all people. Some people are
Exactly.
motivated by money, but many, many people are not motivated by money. And especially millennials or younger people, they're not motivated by money. They make a decent enough living and they're not interested in necessarily getting more money if the quality of their life is hindered as a result.
Mhm.
And that goes even for administrative staff and paralegals. So how do you determine what intrinsically motivates people? If you know the answer to that, you know, we could get rich, because I think it just, you know, for me, it's just really trying to get to know people and
Mhm.
what matters to them.
Right.
You know, is it more time off? Is that the thing that's going to motivate you? Is it having a say in the outcome of what we're doing as a firm and the growth of the firm? Is it having transparency about knowing about the finances of the firm and what, you know, what our strategies are for growth? I really don't know how to measure intrinsic motivation in every person, because, like you said, we're highly motivated people. We don't need to be extrinsically motivated. We do it because we want to achieve something or goal oriented. But it's difficult. I'm not going to lie. I don't have the answer. But I do think, you know, finding out what people are motivated by is key.
Right.
But also being transparent and allowing the people that work with you on your team to have a say in what their reality looks like, how to solve problems and not micromanaging them,
Right.
giving them a project and allowing them to figure out how it's going to happen.
Mhm.
And when they come and ask me for help, instead of me giving them answers, I ask them, well, what have you thought about doing to solve that problem so far, instead of telling them what the answer is, so that people start to feel like they have impact in what they're doing.
Exactly, and I find that as well. Like, some people really just need to feel important. They need to feel like they're impacting the practice, and that's enough
Yeah.
for some people.
Yeah.
It really is, because people don't get enough of that at home.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think for most people, they want to feel valued. And
Mhm.
how do you communicate that you value them besides giving them, you know, a raise?
Right.
It's allowing them some self-determination in the process of what they're doing for you. And I
Mhm.
think it makes people loyal to you when you allow them the sort of some self-determination over how their job is performed.
Right. I've read before that the euphoria of an increase in salary only lasts a couple of weeks, and then of course you increase your standard of living, and you're quote unquote poor again in your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work for in the long term.
Yeah.
I agree. What do you think got your business to the point of success that it's at now?
Building relationships with people. So I work in a high trust factor industry, divorce and family law. It's very personal. It is really often a crisis for many people. It's a very difficult experience for many people. Even if it's amicable, it's still a huge transition for people. So people want to be able to trust you. So building those relationships with, I call them my raving fans,
Mhm.
and having them refer us business has been the secret to our success. Getting a reputation for, you know, getting things done.
Right. Sounds easy.
It's not that
It's
easy.
not that easy though.
It takes time, you know.
Right.
Relationships are built over time. It's not a one-off thing. You know, you
Mhm.
have to keep, and really, it's not work. You know, it's called networking, but it's not really
Right.
work, because it's fun. You're making relationships with people
Right.
that you genuinely like, so they become your friends.
Right. And what I found is you really can't fake it.
No.
Some people just can't do it.
No. And, you know, believe it or not, I'm introverted by nature. I'd much rather sit in my office all day and just work on my business and maybe practice law a little bit and handle some cases. But I have trained myself to get out there and talk to people and just get people talking about themselves. That's what makes people comfortable.
Mhm.
Is, you know, it's not about me. It's, you know, what do I want to learn about you?
Right.
And I think most of us are a little uncomfortable when we walk into those rooms where there's 100 people trying to network. And
Oh yeah.
so when you think of it in those terms, everybody's a little nervous.
Mhm.
It becomes easier, you know, to talk to people.
Right. Right. Okay. Everybody has certain habits that they find make them successful.
Yeah.
Do you have a couple of those habits that you maybe do every day or every week?
Yeah, so I pray every day. I work out 5 days a week, and I plan my day. I usually have I try to block out an hour. Sometimes I don't get an hour to go through what I need to accomplish that day. I'm also very good about writing my goals and objectives down, and each day I look at them and see what is it that I can do today to move those goals forward. So very task oriented like that.
So let's just go back to working out. Do you work out in the morning? Do you work out in the evening? Or do you schedule it in? I've heard some people schedule it in as a non-negotiable.
It's
Meeting.
pretty non-negotiable for me. If I have a 7:30 meeting, I don't work out that day. So I try to get in 5 days a week. Usually Sunday I don't work out,
Mhm.
but I have a trainer that comes to my home twice a week, and then the other 3 days I just work out on my own. I have a gym at home, so it makes it really easy.
Mhm.
But it's something that I really think makes a big difference in how well I'm doing and
Right.
my energy level and my demeanor.
Mhm.
I think I just feel better all the way around.
And supposedly it helps cognitively as well.
Let's hope you're right about that.
What would you tell young attorneys starting out?
Well, I have a young attorney in my family. My daughter's an attorney, and she is a second-year lawyer, and she is feeling the pressure of a big firm experience. Lots of hours, lots of demanding partners. So I would tell her just keep your head down and keep working hard.
Would you recommend her to be entrepreneurial?
Yeah, but not yet. I think she's doing the right thing by gaining a skill. She's working in a big firm environment. She's getting great experience working on big cases for big corporate clients in labor and employment.
Nice.
And I think once she gets a few years under her belt, then she can start to think about where is she going to make her mark, who are the people that she'd like to network with and build a book of business with. Because when you work in those big firm environments, her clients are big companies, so those are tough relationships to get, you know, like with big banks or whoever. So I don't know that that's ever going to really happen for her, but it could, and she could inherit those clients from, you know, her partners. But yeah, I think at some point, you know, young attorneys have to start to think about building a business for themselves, or they can just be a technician that stays in the office, in which case their compensation will be accordingly.
Right.
But for young attorneys, I say find your, you know, what you love to do in the law, because you know, maybe family law isn't for you. Maybe it's the tax, maybe it's corporate, and become the best attorney you can be. Because having business isn't really going to make your company thrive if you're not a good attorney. You know, so you need both. You need to be really good at what you do, but having that business acumen too is really key too.
I agree. Last question. Did you find family law, or did family law find you?
Family law found me. I was a real estate attorney in a big firm in Baltimore. And when I moved back to New Jersey, where I grew up here, I was doing residential real estate transactions. And my friend asked me to do her divorce. So back then, we didn't have the internet. I drove to New Brunswick where the law center was, and they had a library, a bookstore. I bought the books on divorce, and I taught myself how to do divorce, and I got a CD with the forms. And we did have computers at that time, so I taught myself how to do divorce, and 20-some years later, here I am. That's all we do.
And you seem to enjoy it.
I do enjoy it. I like helping people get through this process, and I'm really good at helping people see the value in resolution and moving forward. Not that we can't fight if we need to. We're prepared for a big fight if you want that, and then you need that. Some people do. Sometimes you just can't avoid it, but there's a big value in settling.
So we all hit roadblocks
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah.
What do you do in order to push through some of your tough times?
Wow, that's a really good question. I have a lot of support. So I have a coach that I call my business therapist, and she is integral in my ability to strategize solutions and to characterize my experience in a way that isn't awfulizing it.
Awfulizing.
Yeah, I made that word up.
That's a great word.
So my tendency as a human is to when I experience negativity or roadblocks in my professional or personal life is to make it bigger than it is. So how do I keep my perceptions measured? I pray, I meditate, I work out, and I have a coach who, even though it's something about the way my brain is working that's making that seem bigger than it really is,
Right.
it's still something that we work on together because it affects every part of my life. So sometimes I think that when things break down, you really get the breakthrough. So I learned to recast experiences in a positive light and banish fear. Because that's really what anxiety is motivated by, is afraid of what's the outcome of this roadblock going to be, what's the consequence of this situation that I don't know about, so that I can't predict the future. So my anxiety is built from that fear of the unknown. So
Right.
I meditate and I work out, stay healthy, eat right, talk to people, talk to my mentors. I'm also in a peer advisory group that other business professionals, we talk it through, and it minimizes that fear and allows me to move forward.
Right. So every negative has a learning experience attached to it.
Yeah.
And I guess if you could look forward a year, so you go outside the situation, you look forward a year, and you think, what are the positives that could come out of the situation? You're probably better off from an anxiety standpoint, and you're probably right as well.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I don't think it's bad to look and say to yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen here? And how bad is that really?
Right.
I think I tend to embellish what the outcomes could be from a negative standpoint, instead of just saying, the worst thing that could happen isn't really that bad. So it's not life threatening. So let's just allow those thoughts to come and go instead of perseverating on them and focusing on them.
Right.
So.
Exactly. So where can our viewers find you?
So they can find us at our website, www.dndfamilylaw.com, or they can call us at 908-284-6005.
And you're located in Flemington and Morristown. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. It was a pleasure.
This was wonderful.
Thanks.